Hello, people, and welcome to the grand stage of JK's and Friends Unscripted podcast. The podcast where the beginning is just a glimpse and the ending is a mystery unwritten. Here, we steer into the heart of discovery, navigating through a sea of insights, the thrill of surprises, and the authenticity of real-life sagas shared by our distinguished guests. Every episode is a voyage, and you're an essential part of this expedition. Our guest today is Dr. Kimberly Adams Tufts, aka Kat, best-selling author and former Chief of Education, Research and Development at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs in Norfolk, Virginia, USA.
My work is to empower women, faculty women, to get promoted, land new opportunities, and navigate transitions. It could be out of academia if they choose, without, and this is the core piece, sacrificing their personal relationships, their health, and their wealth. So I'm speaking to a client this morning in a major university, and she works in palliative care and hospice. So helping people to deal with chronic illness, long-term, and you're not going to get better, and helping them to die. And what we are working on is being the giver that she is at the core. She said this, I'm naturally a giver this morning. Balancing that with taking care of herself and doing things that energize and fulfill her. Her work is very fulfilling, but also she said to me, we looked at a calendar, scholarship, teaching, service work. These are all things academics have to do, and there's a couple of others. But I tasked her 2 weeks ago with looking, where is the time for your personal priorities in the construction of your calendar, of your weekly calendar? She couldn't find it, but it's time I spend with my young children, my husband, my mother or father or family, talking to a best friend, she said this morning, right? When we're at the core givers, we're also been trained to be givers, like my civic-minded and civil servant father. We've been trained to it. And then I've been further trained by going into nursing school. Unlike all of the people in my generation, with the exception of two, I have 13 cousins, mostly in North Carolina. We're like sisters and brothers.
I know, we got big families in North Carolina.
And most of them who went to university are engineers. Wow. My father's an engineer. My uncle is an engineer. I was just at something hosted by my cousin, who's a dean of engineering in Texas. And I was not, and I was told to be an engineer. My uncle's job at Notre Dame was getting people of color into engineering. And my family was upset, particularly my father, with me. But what I didn't understand, because they didn't tell me, they just told me to be it. I said, I want to be with people. I want to help people. I only knew chemical, mechanical, and electrical engineers. I guess they're doing good for the world, but I didn't see them as helping people, but they do, I now know. But they didn't tell me about civil engineering or industrial.
Yeah.
And I could have done those quite well and been happy, but they didn't tell me enough. So, but I was trained from the home, in the community, at the university, as an academic, an early academic in the university setting, as someone who's got to start a healthcare center for the elderly, the impoverished, and interurban dwellers, and mothers and babies, to be in service. Now what I'm learning, I have learned for myself and help my clients with, how do you balance that with caring for yourself, being in your most optimal state? And if that includes your family and friends and such, so that you can continue to serve others.
Yes.
Right. And that's where I am in my life. That's who I am today.
I love that you said that, because I have the utmost respect for women. And I tell you why. I was raised by a woman. My parents got a divorce when I was a child, and I saw my mom work, progress, do it all on her own, never complaining. My sister had a brain tumor when she was 17 years old. She died when she was 21.
Wow.
My brother, in the same time, got mental illness, so he became a schizophrenic. There was Tony and myself coming up. We were little, obviously,
Yes.
and she never complained.
Mm.
She was strong. She raised us good. She mentored me a lot.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
now that I'm an adult and she's gone, she died when she was 73, 4 years before her 74th birthday from cancer.
Mm.
And now that I'm an adult and I realize that she hid a lot from us, to not make us feel what she was going through. But now I see life and I see how difficult it is for a woman to go and mind you, military world, white lady, white kids, black kids in the 70s. I don't need to tell you more, right?
No.
So, but we never felt that. Always happy, always everything, and then you tell me I'm helping women, I'm empowering women. I teach them to have their options and still remain who they are, because the moment a woman starts having a child, she becomes mom to the world. But we forget she's still a woman. She still has dreams. She still wants to do things. She wants to go, with her husband, stroll the park with her, and all of that. And I'm so thankful that women like you do this, empower other women as well, because I think it's difficult for people to say, you know what, I want to be me.
Yes.
And especially for a woman.
It may be seen as selfish. JK, you said something in your own experience, and it just is interesting to me how our experiences parallel each other, because my mom and dad separated when I was pretty young, and mom left. She left. That wasn't done in the 70s, right?
No.
She left and moved her children. And because remember, I have a stepmother. And my dad married her twice. She's still alive. I love her to death. Well, little problems with keeping a wife, Dad. But okay. But your mom had her 3 children. She had military life. Now she's like, if I heard you right, she's a white woman with black children. It's the 70s. There's a whole lot to handle and to deal with. As children, though, if I heard you right, you didn't feel it.
No.
You didn't see it. Right.
No.
Similar with my mom. And guess what? Now my dad is alive. He's 88. Our moms died around the same age. Maybe it was the stress of all that and being internalized. My mom died early. Most of her sisters and brothers are still alive. The majority of my father's, the brothers are starting to die off, but I got all these relatives up in their 80s, right? Who now I'm the healthcare person that's the consultant for everybody. Okay, so I got a place, I got a role.
It's funny to say that because when we start talking, I was like, you need to talk to my dad because he's not happy with the VA.
That's what I do. And I went around like on a little round robin when I was in North Carolina doing that. You remind me, there's an aunt who had a procedure on Friday. I meant to call her yesterday. But when I came to her house, she went and got the papers. And this is what they want to do to me, But our experience is parallel because I saw a strong woman in my mother who got up and left a marital situation that was not the best for her, but she then had 4 children to raise. Now, Dad stepped back in, but my dad was angry for a couple of years. So he didn't support us when we moved away from him for a couple of years. Mom had to deal with that.
I want to step on that because, we have an international listeners.
Yes.
I have people in Europe and I have people around. We know what angry means back in the 60s.
Yes.
For black men.
Yes.
The Vietnam War was going, there was segregation. That's so right. It's important that we talk about it because I don't want it to be misunderstood. Angry means it was difficult to have the transition between the Americas of the 40s, the civil rights, and the way America was changing. So
Yes.
that's what made most Black men misunderstood and angry, you know.
Yes, the transition. And imagine my parents met each other. And this is crazy. They met each other because of a larger societal thing that was happening. My dad graduated from college as a mechanical engineer, and I didn't know he was a mechanical engineer for most of my life. Because he did whatever he had to do, and he became a civil servant, basically. He couldn't get a job in the South. He's a mechanical engineer. So relatives tell him to travel north to Detroit, Michigan. And he stops in a restaurant and meets my mom on the way. My mom was working. Her dad was a real chef. That's how they got through the Depression. Her dad, and she had been taught in the home, she was the oldest, to cook well and that kind of stuff. So she got a job after school at 13 years old. And when my dad met her, she's 18 and she's graduated from high school, but she's supposed to be, according to her parents' plan, working for 1 year so that she can then go to university, because she has been accepted into a university-based nursing school, one of the best.
We're talking in the 50s.
Yes, late 50s. Yes. And my dad meets her. She's working in this restaurant, and it ruined her parents' plans for her. They got married. She wasn't old enough. Then you had to, in the United States and probably in Europe, you had to get your parents' permission to get married unless you were 21. So my dad is traveling because as an educated young Black guy, he can't get a job, though he's university educated as an engineer. He meets my mom, who's supposed to be going to university, which was unusual for her time. And my grandmother convinces my grandfather to not go fishing, but to go sign for them to have a marital license. Because my mother said she heard her parents whispering in their bedroom. My grandfather says, "Well, Loretta, I'm going out to fish today. This is my day off." And she says, "No, Joseph, you can't go. You have to go and get Mariana a license for marriage." He said, "I'm not going to get her any license for marriage. She's got a lot of future ahead of her. She's not marrying some guy. She's going to university." And my grandmother,
because it meant a lot back then.
Yeah,
going to college, you know.
Right. My grandmother says, "No, honey, no, dear, no, sir. If you don't get them a license, I think they'll get in trouble." And my mom said that's all it took. He went to get the license. And so my mother gives up all her dreams and her parents' dreams for her. And my mother said she heard her father say, "It's not going to work. He's already too educated, and he came from one of these high." They say that people in other southern states came to the United States, African people, because my family is African, right? And then we have white folks in the family. And they say we have Native Americans. I don't know about that, JK, because I've learned in my own thing,
we all do. My anti-family says we have Native American. I did heritage.com. I have 2%. So we don't have Native American.
No, and guess what? Guess what my heritage is? It's Asian.
Really?
Indian, in fact. Indian from India. Okay, so, but they get married, but my grandfather said it's not going to work. And this is why I heard this story from my mother as part of why I do the work I do. He said he's already too educated. And we say, and it's a joke, and my first husband used to say this, you know how the Black people came over on the slave ships? Well, Kimberly's family didn't come over on the slave ship. They navigated the ship.
Because they were engineers.
Well, Virginians, they're thought to be kind of bourgeoisie, Blacks, and highbrow. Okay. All right. So they thought that they were above, like my mother's people who came from West Virginia, or people from Alabama, South Carolina. My father didn't eat rice because he's a Virginian. Virginians don't eat rice. We're not like those Gucci's. he called them. He said it wrong, from South Carolina.
Yeah.
So my first husband said they think they navigate the ship. They're these highbrow Virginia, and we've been.
That would be interesting to find out. That would be.
We were related to one of the richest plantation owners of that time. If you're white, you say our family name this way. If you're white, you say, if you're white, right? Or if you're black, right? You say, I come from the Harstons. That's Scottish. We know if you're black because you say, I'm from the Harristons.
Yeah.
Okay, but Samuel Harston was one of the richest men in America. And when my great-great-grandfather left the plantation, they were related. He gave him land.
Oh, wow. So, wow.
Okay.
When I did my heritage.com DNA test, they could, like, I know that my family has been in North Carolina for a very long time because they could pinpoint coastal Carolina African American. Mm-hmm. And the first one came around 1500 and some change, so I love the history of African Americans because it's so rich and we know so little of it, and the sharing, I was talking to my Aunt Louise, and she was already super old. She must have been 90 when she was I was 16 then. I don't know. And she was telling me all those old stories that, because again, I'm listening to you and I know the narrative, but everyone that is listening here in Europe, it's history. Well, it's beautiful that you share that.
We have a shared history. And I have to say to your European and UK audience, unlike I've been asked to, and I haven't done this, when I've been in the UK and I've met Scottish people, they said, you must come to Scotland and you have to look for your family. It's a mantle, but that's not the word they use. You have to look for, I'll remember it, but it's like a plaque, but it means your family heritage in Scotland.
Oh, wow.
They told me you must come and do that. I was in Harold's one time.
Based on your last name?
Well, because I'm Harrison, yes, it's Scottish.
Yeah, okay.
And you can trace it on that side all the way back. Oh, it's not the family mantle. I don't remember, but you Scottish folks, and I guess us Scottish folk know what I'm talking about. But they tell me to come to Scotland. You can't just stick around here in Britain, Kimberly. You need to come and visit your peoples, and you need to find this out. You will be shocked when you learn your history, right?
We need to ask him, Keith. I had a podcast with him. If he listens, Keith, write us a comment about this and find the word. So we that's probably the longest podcast I've ever had with someone, and I still have one question to ask you. One time we had a conversation and you were telling me about the challenges of comparing yourself to others, dealing with assumption based on appearance. How did you navigate through these challenges?
Assumptions from others based on appearance.
That's what you told me last time.
Well, I show up as I am, right? I show up as the person I am, as the person who's evolved and grown and learned all these things and brings them to the table. And then I allow them to come to their own conclusions. Like people get shocked when I speak Spanish, right? That's because they have certain preconceived ideas about who people who speak Spanish look like, people who have a Spanish middle name, what they look like, or what their experience has been. So I allowed them to come to their own conclusions, and I share with them as is necessary or needed, or when they ask me different things. And one guy asked me one time, he said, I'm in a meeting and I forgot something was said. And I said something and he said, well, what are you? He's now died. He was a mentor. He became a friend. He was always gruff and a little opinionated.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, but I allowed him to get to know me over the years without me pushing who I am or who I think I am on him, right? And he came to know me quite well, and we had a great friendship, and he died early from cancer. But that's how I go about it. I don't, like if there's something, we're having a conversation, we're in a setting and I can contribute to it, I no longer feel hesitant to contribute. If I know something about the peoples of Zimbabwe, for example, or what it means to be, every country I've been to, we're just all people. People think some people have to be on top or be superior, and some people have to be on the bottom. I don't care what country I've been to. So in Kenya, when I asked about a certain people, and this young guy who owned this company, taxi company or transport company, I said, I'm so sorry I didn't get to go there. I'm going to go there one day. I was in Kenya in 2008 on a human rights mission or excursion. And we were having brunch on Saturday before we're going to leave the country at this place out of Africa. It was the homestead of the woman who wrote Out of Africa. And I think she's Swedish.
Really?
And it was beautiful. If I could find some pictures of that, because that was before phones and such, I'm going to show them to you. But anyway, I said I wanted to go visit these peoples, go to that part of the country. And remember, the people who rules Kenya are their first president out of colonialism was Kenyatta. Como Kenyatta? I can't. But so they're a certain tribe. And he said, oh, yeah, but, they don't have their lands like they should and stuff because they're lazy. I'm sitting across the table from him. His second in charge is sitting beside me. We're all young people. This is 2008. We've got a long table in this fabulous garden. And an Indian physician I know who came from the Brahmins is sitting at the head of the table there. And I was you could get on my nerves then, and I could show it by you being superior or looking down on people. So my hair stood up and I said, oh, they're lazy. And the guy down there, diplomatic, young Indian, American, but from heritage is Indian, from India, from Asia, spoke up first. And the guy next to me was the head of the transports company, second in charge. And he, I think, came from those peoples, but he wanted to speak up. I remember this is his boss. This guy takes over the conversation and he says, but think about the advantage. We're all sitting here today in this fabulous setting. How many people in your country and mine can have this opportunity, experience something like this? And he said, I was given an advantage. When the British came to India, my family was among the chosen people, the Brahmins, if you remember the history. And he said, that's why I'm sitting here with you today. And then I got myself together and I said, and my family was related to one of the richest European men in America and in the United States. And yes, because America, they're all the Americas, right? Yeah. That's ethnocentrism, right? In the United States, and my family was given land. Land is riches, right? Even if it's terrible land. And I said, that's why I have the advantage of being here with you today. That's why he has an advantage. And I said to the young man who owned the company, what kind of advantages have you had? And we had a fabulous conversation after that. We young people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful. So my last question for you, if you could give an advice to your younger self, any point of your age, what would it be?
Only go with the flow if it is aligned with your values, beliefs, passions, and goals.
Perfect. I love that. Cats,
Mhm.
thank you so much for spending time with JK's and Friends Unscripted podcast.
Mhm.
I know that I must stop recording, but I could go on for hours. And in fact, probably what I'm going to do is stop the recording and continue talking to you.
Well, while we're recording, may I thank you for this fabulous opportunity. Yes, I'm an introvert, but I have been well trained to speak and give persuasive, to put thoughts together, because that's what we do in policy work. You have to tell stories to get people to glean to your idea and write legislation or allocate funding to support your cause and your mission. So I've been doing that now for about 25 years. And I appreciate the opportunity. I love what you're doing with your building projects. I love the person that you are. I love that we have this commonality of coming up around the same time and having parents from Virginia and North Carolina, and your mom being from Europe, right? And you have a dual citizenship. And I
Yes.
thank you to your audience, United States, Europe, South America, Asia, whoever listens. Thank you that together we have this world now where we can reach out to each other so easily.
Thank you so much.